Good morning and welcome to our Facebook Live this morning. My name's Jenny McCormack and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator, and I'm based in Brackley, the market town of Brackley, which is in Northamptonshire in the UK. Thank you for joining us this morning. I thought we'd have a bit of a change from the tidings and trimming stamp set that I've been using for the last week, and I thought we'd do a little bit of gift packaging. Now I know there are a lot of experienced crafters out there that are more than capable of creating boxes to fit their projects, but I also know that I have new customers and new followers and viewers that may not know how to create a box from scratch using the measurements of the item you're trying to gift wrap. There's lots of videos on YouTube. You only have to hunt for those. But what happens if you want a gift box for something that you have purchased? Now this is great for little gifts for Christmas in particular, where you may have been to a store and picked up lots of miniature things, and rather than just give that or just wrap it in paper, it's just nice to give it a little bit of a focus and a unique touch. So what I'm going to show you, I am going to wrap some Tombow glue as well, and I've also got these lovely little sheer butter hand creams, and I gifted some of these at the weekend, and I created a little box with a hole, and that was the photograph of that was shown briefly on my Facebook page this morning. Hi Jeanette, and hi Kerry, good evening. So if you know already how to measure boxes, then that's absolutely fine. This may not be the video for you, but I have a few hints and tips on the way which I hope you'll find useful. So I am going to show from scratch how I measure an item and how I create the dimensions for that. And if it's something you would use over and over again, then I would keep a template or maybe write down in a book the measurements that you have. If it's just a one-off, then you may not, excuse me, I've got a dry throat. You may not need to do that. So let's start with the Tombow. I've got some pretty paper for my in the garden hand cream, and I've tried to sort of match it up with similar papers. And this is some of the new papers coming out in January. And it has this lovely design on all of the backs, which is a different wood grains with white and grey, and then we have these coloured designs on the front, and they're floral, and there's also bees in there as well. And I've chosen to match it with the pale papaya, and hopefully that will go nicely with our design here. So let's start with a rather boring Tombow, but let's make it look a little bit more exciting. So in terms of the measurements, I am going to grab a thicker marker pen just to show you, if I can get there without knocking everything over like I did the other day. So I'm going to use a Sharpie. So what I want to create for this is a box, so a box base and a box lid. And so the first thing we need to do is get the measurements of the width of the item and also the height. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just on the right hand side here, actually I might turn it this way, might be better for you. So the width of this, and I'm using centimetres. And I'm using my coloured ruler, so it's a bit easier for you to see. Not that you can read the measurements, I appreciate that. So what I'm doing is I'm measuring the width, adding a millimetre on here or there. I don't want it too snug, because you could always add a little bit of tissue paper on the inside. So I'm measuring this, and this is about 3 point... Sorry, I'm just listening to my dog. 3.6 millimeters. 3.6 centimeters wide. So I'm going to draw out a little box base like this. Okay, so this is going to be my base, and I know that I want that 3.6 centimeters wide here. Okay, then I'm going to measure the height. So I'm going to do this with the Tombow, and then I'll do it again with my little hand cream. Exactly the same process, obviously, but I'll do it a little bit quicker second time round. Facebook's just kicked me off, I don't know why. No idea. Okay, so the height of this is about 10.5. I'm going to make it 10.6. That is the height. Okay, and then I need the depth of it. So the depth of this, and bear in mind that if you've got something that is obviously not straight, you want the widest part of that, which I reckon is about there, and I reckon that's about 2.7. So this the height here, if you like, is 2.7. Okay, now it's up to you. You can add a little bit on each time, just to give you a bit to play with, but it's entirely up to you. So in order to work out how big this needs to be, we need the base here, which has got to be 3.6. And then if you imagine the box has been flattened out, we need the height here of 2.7 and here 2.7. So basically you've got one of the width and the two sides. Okay, so if you flatten that out, that's what you would get. And we're going to do the same up here. So the height at the top here will also be 2.7, and here would be 2.7, and then this length here will be our 10.6. So you want to add 2.7, 10.6 and 2.7 to get the total height that we need, and this is just for either the base or the top. Okay, who's good at calculating? 2 lots of 2.7 is 5.4. And 10.6. So that makes that 16 centimeters high. That way. And then the width here is 3.6 by 2 lots of 2.7. Oh, hi Jill. Hi Brenda. And hi Kay. So this width here, we've got 5.4 and 3.6. Okay, going across there, which is a 9 in total. So I know that I need to cut my piece of card to be 16 centimeters high and 9 centimeters across. And if you want to just sort of be sure about that, if you make if you look at the 16 on here, that gives me enough space for the height, and equally here that 9 looks really big, doesn't it? What have I done? 16. Oh no, it's about right. It's because it's quite shallow. Fingers crossed I've got that right. 5.4, 8, 9. Okay, let's give it a go. So this also tells us our score lines. So we're going to cut our piece 16 by 9, and we need to then score at this 2.7 from either side. Okay, top, bottom and the edges. So let's grab a piece of spare card. Just looking for something I've got plenty of. So I'm going to cut my piece 16 by 9. Now I have allowed a little bit. Let's get the right trimmer. So I might need to adjust it, but I would recommend when you do your first one that you don't use your best card or paper, but equally don't use the cheapest card you've got, because if you do a template that you want to use over and over again, A, it won't last. Just moving that up to 16. But also it'll bend and buckle and you just won't get the effect that you want. So 16 by 9. Okay, so if I put that on in the middle, I should see the same edge all the way around. And the height here I calculated as 2.7. So I'm going to score this at 2.7 centimetres all the way around. Okay, let's take my glasses off so I can see. So 2.567, or if you prefer, 3 millimetres down from the 3 centimetres. 1, 2. 3, 4. Okay, now I appreciate you can't see that necessarily, those score lines. Let me put my glasses back on, see what you can see. Okay, now the best thing to do is if you now pop your gift item onto your piece, and you could do one with lines drawn on here before you score them, you'll then see whether that is going to fit into there. Okay, and the main thing is that the height will also fit like so. So that's looking good. Okay, so this is going to be the base, and then we're going to create the top just 2 millimeters bigger, but with the same score line. So what that will mean is that this bit in the middle will be 2 millimeters bigger all the way round. Okay, so let's just see what this is looking like. Okay, so that should fit, and I know that will fit height wise. Okay, that way, and it should also fit height wise that way. So this is a good time before you start making the box up, just to make sure that that is all going to fit, and it should fit. It depends on how much you've allowed. If you allowed, you know, it's amazing how much 1 millimeter difference can make. Okay, so what we're going to do now is create the box element of this. So I'm just going to grab a pair of snips. So I hope you can see those score lines. Yes, you can, just about. And I'm going to cut up 1. Oh, got some glue on this. 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and that gives you an opportunity just to try it out, if you like so, and then hopefully, if I've measured it correctly, that will fit in perfectly. You can see that. If I just tilt it on its side, I'm not holding it straight, but there we go. Okay, So in order to make the box look a little bit prettier from that, what I like to do is keep these side pieces straight. So I don't like to cut in at an angle on these side pieces. I like to do it on this piece here. And the reason for that is if I fold this together, can you see there, you've got a really nice 90-degree edge. If you cut into this, it's very easy to over exaggerate this and you end up with it being, and I am exaggerating here, not quite flat, or you pull it in too far. So I like to keep these pieces straight and only do a little bit of prettifying, if you like, on the tabs, because the tabs in all instances will be inside the box. Okay, and that will give you a nice clean edge. That's my preferred way to do it. I know some people cut these in, and that's absolutely fine. But if you're doing it from scratch and you're just starting, then my recommendation is leave these pieces alone, just cut into the tabs. So what we're going to do is take my glasses off, and I'm just going to cut it up a notch like so. If I put that flat, hope you can see that. And this just means it will just make a nice edge. Okay, it means as if you've got any height difference, you know, if you've just measured it slightly different, if you've scored it slightly different, there's a bit of leeway for this to go. And you can do this one as well if you like. Okay, so I'm just using the snips, and as I say, you just want to cut into the tabs, not the sides of the box, like so. Okay, so all we did, for those of you that joined after the start, was I'm doing a little gift box for my glue, just as a temporary let's get started. So I placed this down, I measured the width of the glue here, I measured the height of the glue, and this bit here, so the depth of the glue and the height. And then all I've done is drawn a little box, imagining this is our flattened box, which is effectively what we've got here. So I've got 16 centimeters by 9 centimeters, and I've scored the depth. So the depth of our tombow was 2.7, so I've scored 2.7 all the way around. Okay, and then I've just cut in those 4 sides and then just cut the tabs. Okay, leave everything as is. And then all you need to know is that you're going to put glue on the tabs. So turn your box face over, because if you just imagine this going together, and if you're doing this for the first time, you could always just mark these pieces. So grab a pen or a pencil, and if you know this is going to be on the inside, just put a cross or a dot or something. Oops. So you know that's the side that the glue will go on. It's very easy to think, oh yeah, this is going together, so I need to put glue here, and then you end up with it on the wrong side. Okay, so I'm going to pop glue on each of those. Let me have a look and see if anybody else has joined us. Not that I can see. So Jeanette, Jill, Brenda, Kerry, so far, and anybody else who's watching who isn't coming up on my list. So I prefer to use Tombow, but you could use tape if you prefer. The thing with tape is that once it's stuck, whereas with a Tombow you've got a little bit of room to play. So I'm going to add a thin layer of glue over my tab, and I would recommend not using too much glue. That's the critical thing. Just giving that 10 seconds or so to start to go tacky, because if the glue is really wet, and especially if you apply too much, it can just seep out of the sides. Whereas if you just leave that for 10 seconds or so, it will go slightly tacky and it will hold together much quicker. Okay, so all we're going to do is just fold that in and then just hold it. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze again. Or maybe not. Fold this one in and hold it. And because I've left it to go slightly tacky, it grabs hold of the card much quicker. If it's really wet, it just tends to slide around. So that's my two sides. Now, if you've got a large area, what you can do is just use a bulldog clip or a paper clip and pop that on there if you want to. With smaller boxes, you really don't need to. So I'm just going to fold this in on either side, and again position that and that. Just make sure you've got a nice neat corner there and there, and you do have a little bit of time just to maneuver it if you want to. Okay, so I'm just going to hold that. Literally 10 seconds should be all you need. Okay, and that's a nice sturdy clean box. Not too much glue, you don't want glue spilling out everywhere. And all being well, our Tombow fits in there perfectly. So I've got a very small amount, literally a millimetre or two on either side for our glue. So I always do that for the base because you want it to fit the base really nicely. And now we're going to do the top. So we're going to do the top the same way. I've got the same dimensions, but I'm going to add 1 or 2 millimeters to each of these dimensions, but I'm going to score in the same place, and all that will mean is it's the same depth. You can do smaller depth if you want to and adjust it, but let's just go for straightforward creating this box as if you were a beginner, so it's going to fit nice and snugly. So all I'm going to do is grab my piece of card. So my measurements were 16 by 9, which was the total here and the total here. So once times the width, 2 times the depth, once times the height, 2 times the depth. Let's grab my... So I'm going to do 16.2 by 9.2. Will this one work? Yes, it will. So I'm just going to open this up. So I'm going to basically add a millimetre on either side. That's what I'm doing. So 16.2 there we go, by 9.2, but my score lines will be exactly the same, okay, because it's still going to be the same height. So 2.7, so just 3 down from 3 centimeters all the way around. 1, 2. So if you're used to making boxes, I apologize, this is probably too simple for you, but I do have a lot of new crafters following me, and it's also useful to revisit some older techniques, especially if you haven't been making gift boxes throughout the year. And this is perfect for little table gifts and things like this. So this will fit exactly the same, but I've got just literally a millimetre all the way around. So I'm going to cut this the same. I'll knock my scissors off, I know that. Oh, it's a really dull day here again. Ooh. So I'm going to do the same thing, cutting up from the bottom along the long side, like so. 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to cut in here and so I did exactly what I said I shouldn't do, which is perfect actually, because I want to show you why you shouldn't do that. So I'm going to cut in the tab. It's because my phone beeped and I just glanced at it. Okay, so cut the tab only, not the main piece. Okay, and you can do the edge of the tab as well if you would like. And there. Okay. The other thing you can do for your lids, and you would need to do it really before you do any folding, is you could add a little half circle to make it easier to take on and off, so you've got a little sort of marking point. So if you've got dies, you could put a half circle on either side through a die cutting machine. If you've got a circle punch or an oval punch or anything like that, you could use that. Let me grab one. See what I've got here. This is a 1.5 inch circle punch, and I'm just going to put a little notch in, so you're not going to do the whole thing, just a little notch, and I am just doing that by eye, like so and so. Obviously if you wanted to make that more accurate, you could mark the center point and then use that. Okay, so I'm going to fold this up like so, and I just want to show you this corner here where I did a different edge. Excuse me. Oh, thanks, Jeanette. So this one has a straight edge. I'm just going to fold that over. So when I put that in, you get a really nice corner. Now that I've cut this one away, the temptation is, I don't know if you can see, is if you're not careful, you want to straighten this, and that makes that out of line. It's really difficult to show you, but that's no longer a straight edge, and also you don't know how much of that edge, so it's quite easy to make this slightly incorrect. It's difficult to force yourself to do it, but let's see. I'm going to exaggerate it, so that you end up then with something that isn't a nice 90-degree edge. Does that make sense? So I'm going to do this one last, because then I know that the others will put it in line. Okay, so cut the tabs only, not the center panel. Now the other thing you could do at this point, which I did for my gift boxes, was you could cut with a die or a punch if it fitted in, a circle, or you could do a rectangle if you wanted them to see the tombow. So if you had a rectangular die, you could work out where that was going to go so that you could see what was inside. Okay, we'll do that on my second project. So we're going to do the same thing. Place this face down, find the glue, pop the glue on the 4 sides. So as I say, a scribble of glue, not too close to the edges because you can sort of smush it around. Okay, one of the I would say one of the most common things that people do and get disappointed by is they add too much glue. The glue goes everywhere. Excuse me, the box goes out of shape and they get really disappointed, understandably. So minimal glue, and my secret, I'm sure it's not mine, I'm sure other demonstrators do this as well, and crafters, is to leave it a good 10 seconds if you're using wet glue for this to go tacky. If you're using tape, obviously you don't need to leave any time at all. The tape will be ready to go. And if you are using tape, you want to make sure it's close to the score line so that you get a nice tight edge. You don't want the tape at the top end, because then it'll sort of work away from the score line, if that makes any sense. So if you have your tape right up here, you'll get that nice crisp edge. And if your tape's at the other end, it will start to bow away from each other. Okay, so we've got one there, one here, and again you've got a nice crisp edge. Oops. Now this is the one where I've cut it in, so I'm just going to be a little bit careful with this one. So I'm going to do this one first. So just take your time. Okay. There we go. And then the proof of the pudding will be to see if it fits. Okay. Which hopefully it does, like so. So I made this 2 millimeters wider. You could, if you want a really snug fit, make it 1 millimeter, but I don't like a box so snug that you can't actually get it on and off. Okay, so there's our Tombow in our gift box. And obviously you could decorate that up with papers. If you have strong papers, you could use the papers to start with. Okay, just bear in mind it's not going to be as strong as using a box and then adding papers to it. So there's our little practice project. So let's make a gift box for this little hand cream. So I'm going to do exactly the same. So if you're measuring the width, obviously you want the widest part. Okay, and this is for a standard box. I'm not doing a clever box that is shaped. I'm just doing a standard box. So I'm measuring this, and I've got that at 5 centimeters. So I know my width is 5 centimeters. Okay, my length is going to be just under 9, 8.8. Let's make it 9, just for the sake of my mental state. So 5 centimeters across, 9 centimeters, and then for the depth, again, you want to measure the widest part, which I'm thinking is here. Okay, because there's nothing worse than it squishing together, and that is, with one eye closed, 3 centimeters. So this here is 3. So if you imagine your box open out like that, if that helps you. Okay, so you've got 5, 3 and 3. So that's 11 centimeters across. Okay, and then you've got 9, 3 and 3, 15 centimeters down. Okay, now if you got these on a regular basis, or you're doing them on and off for, I don't know, wedding gift or table favors, then I would write on here what it is. So this is by Heathcote and Ivory. And then I would write it's whatever the size it is, 30mm. So that you know what that is, and then you can keep that, pop it in a book, photograph it, whatever you prefer to do. So 11 by 15 is going to be my base, and my height is going to be 3 centimeters. So let's move that out of the way. I'm going to use pale papaya just because it matches the papers really. So 11 by 15. So there's my 15. So I get 2 out of A4, not quite get 3. I just cut that at 10.5. Because I'm so used to cutting that in. Right, let's try again. 15. It's Wednesday, isn't it? I didn't even have a late night last night. Right, by 11. Okay. I will need 2 of those. And 3 centimeters is my height, or my depth if you like. So I'm going to move my cutting blade out of the way and cut 3 centimeters. 3. And 3. I prefer to do it that way rather than calculate. I mean, this is quite an easy calculation, but that way you know you've got even from every edge. If you calculate that it should be 5 plus 3 and you do it at 8, which is fine for nice round numbers, but if it was 8.2, I much prefer to do it the same all the way around from the edge in, if that makes any sense at all. Okay, so I'm going to pop my little hand cream on there just to make sure that I've got the width right. You can pop it on the side here, see that you've got the depth roughly right. Okay, so this is the base. So here we go. Do it properly, Jenny. So straight up and then cut the tabs in. 1 and 2. And exactly the same. So leave the main part alone. And by cutting the tabs in, it just gives a neater edge. It's not critical, but sometimes it can just stick out a little bit, and it's much easier to cut it now than it is when it's put together. So 1, 2. Straight up 1, 2. And if anybody's wondering where I got these from, I got these from our local chemist. There we go. Move those out of the way. Okay, check again. That looks good. We're going to fold these all up like so. That one, that one. And if you had a really thick card, I would recommend you use a bone folder just to get some nice crisp edges to it. You could also put a panel of paper on the inside, so it's going to be the inside of our box like so, and you can do that and just make sure that it's going to fit. So if you wanted to, I would do that before I put this in. So let's do that. We know that that measurement is 5 by 9. Actually, I've got some offcut here somewhere. No, let's use this bit. So pretty. This set of papers coming up. I know it's going to be 5 by 9, so I'm going to do 4.8. by 8.8. Like so. So I've just taken off 2 millimeters, and that then will fit on the inside of our box. So let's pop that down. So much easier to add it when it's flat than when you put it together. So again, scribble of glue, not too much, not too close to the edges. So, and obviously if you've got a right or a wrong way, just be you know, conscious of that. And then I'm just going to slide this into place. So I've literally got a 1 millimeter border all the way around, like so. Okay, so let's turn that over. If you prefer, if you struggle to remember which way the tabs are, then fold the box up and then fold the tabs in, and then you know that you've got to do them like that. I find with that the danger is it pings and you get covered in glue, and that's why I like to turn it over. But as I say, if in doubt, just mark the edges. Let's get the right glue for that. And I don't need to decorate the sides of this because this is going to be the inside of the box anyway. You could decorate all of the sides. Just be aware though that you're adding some thickness on each time. Only a small amount, but it's amazing how that adds up really. Okay, so I'm just going to give that 10 seconds or so, maybe a little bit less. Okay, so if you take your time with the first one, by the time you come to do the other ones, they'll be nice and tacky. So there's that one. This one, so can you see, because I've trimmed that down, I don't know if you can see that or not. It's not sticking up over the top of the box. Whereas if you had left that straight and I hadn't quite scored it right, it might just stick out over the top. Okay, here go the last two. There's my UPS man, thank you. That's my box for all my classes. I ordered it Monday and expedited it, and it arrives today. Can't argue with that, can you? Okay, there we go. So that's our box base, and now for our box lid, I'm going to have to grab another piece of card because this is going slightly bigger. Okay, so we're going to use the same measurements plus 2 millimeters, so 11 by 15. So I'm going to do 11.2 by 15.2. You could make it 1 millimeter. Let's do it with 1 and see what difference it makes. .1. By 15.1. There we go. But the score lines are exactly the same at 3 centimeters. So I'm just going to score that all the way around. Okay. And for now, there's so many different types of boxes you can do. You can have them where they're all in one, so you're not creating a lid and a base if you wish. Got a pizza box style where it just opens up like a pizza box. They're just literally hundreds of different designs. Okay, so if I put my box on the inside of here, I can see that it's just going to fit in. A little bit tighter than the last one, hopefully will be okay. So I'm going to do a couple of things with this one. Let's first of all cut these edges the right way, so straight and then into that, and then straight. And that's one reason when I did my very first one, I did the straight cuts all first to stop me making that error of cutting into the tab. So if you're prone to me, like me, to do that, then do your cutting first. So straight on the long side of the box. And I always do the long side, because if you do the short side first and cut this, sometimes these pieces can overlap a little bit, and then it's not as easy to put the box together. Obviously it depends on the height of your box as to how big these tabs will be. Right, there we go. So I'm going to do a couple of things with this to spruce this up. So I'm going to add my notches on either side, like so. And again, I am just guessing it. Actually, I'm going to decorate it first, because I want to decorate the sides and have the notches, if that makes sense. So I'm going to decorate the top, and I'm also going to cut out an element in the center so that you can see this where it says in the garden, so we know what it is. So I've just happened to have found a circular die from one of my sets, and I'm just going to literally I'm going to mark it, but I'm going to put some paper over it anyway, so let's do the paper first. Okay, so the paper I'm going to put on here and all four sides. Okay, now I have the measurements already, if you think about it, because I know that the height is 3 centimeters for the sides, and then I've got 2 at 5 and 2 at 9. So what I'm going to do is take this piece and cut it at 2.8 centimeters. I'm using my grid line on there, and this will make some of the sides. So I've got 9 centimeters, so I'm going to make that 8.8. Okay, anybody's... Oh yes, I did make it bigger, didn't I? Just thinking, had I made that any bigger? Oh dear, I did. I added a millimetre on, didn't I? Okay, so I've got 8.8 and 8.8. Okay, so if I just bring this up, this is going to be my side piece, and my side piece. Now this is another good reason for not cutting that at a slant, because then you have to cut in this piece to match it, if that makes any sense. Okay, and then need these two pieces, and I bet that's not big enough. No, of course not. So I'm going to cut this at 2.8. I'm not worrying too much about the fact that I'm using this paper, and I'm not, not necessarily getting the best out of it. And the width is 5. So I'm making that just a little bit smaller. Whoops. Like so. That's going to go onto there. That's going to go onto there, and then I've got my middle piece here, which it'll be slightly bigger than my 5x9 because I've cut this piece a little bit bigger. So I'm going to just do just over 5.1. And I made it slightly bigger. I might need to trim it down. Always best to have it slightly big rather than too small. So I'm just going to pop this on and see if that will fit. Because what I'm going to do is stick these down and then punch the sides and my circle. Okay, that looks fine. And before I do that, I'm just going to make sure that it does, in fact, I'm not going to stick it down, but I want to make sure it fits my box. There's a lid. So this one's going to be a little bit tighter because I've only got a millimetre difference. So yeah, that'll work. So flatten this out. I'm going to apply my pieces of paper. Now you can add the papers afterwards if you're not doing any cutting out of this piece. And I would recommend using an all-over design for this, because then you don't have to worry that you've cut these at a different, if you've got a pattern going that way and then you've got a pattern going that way, it's quite easy to get them all over the place, unless you don't mind that, in which case it's fine. Okay, so I'm just popping these on. 1, 2, and again, not too much glue. It's only sticking paper to card, so it doesn't need a lot of glue. It's all just going to seep out if you're not careful. Okay, so you could use tape for this. You could use our seal or snail if you've still got snail, entirely up to you. Okay, and the last one. So I am stepping this up from the original one, and as I say, you could just use card all the way through. There we go. Like that. Now I'm going to punch my little sections of the edge, and again I'm really only doing that by eye. Bear in mind, whoops, that will be thicker. Now you've got card and paper, like so. Okay. And then finally we're going to cut out the hole for where we want people to see what we've got in their little box. So it's going to be roughly here. You see how rough that was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run that through the die cutting machine. And I also have a larger die, so what I'm going to do is cut another piece of this card afterwards with this hole in to do the little edge. Okay, let me grab my die cutting machine. Oh, with my plates. So sorry, this has gone on a bit longer than normal, but I wanted to show you how to do it from scratch because I just think it's really useful. Because a lot of people do struggle getting box sizes. Okay, I could take that down if I wanted to. For me, as long as it's roughly where it needs to be, it will be fine. Okay, I'm going to do that all through there. There we are, so there's my hole. And then I'm going to pop this through with my larger and my smaller die to create a little border around it. So just using one of those offcuts like so. Don't throw this bit away because you could use that on the tag, for example. Pop those, oops, that moved. Go. To move my calculations out of the way, and now I've got a little border. It's not exactly in the center, but so that can go on there like that, and hopefully they'll be able to see that through. You could put some acetate in there if you wanted to. You could pop that on the back, or you could cut the acetate out with the larger window and pop it in between those two, and then add that back on. Okay, I don't think I've got any acetate to hand, so let's pop that little piece on. So again, just a little bit of glue. This has got a nice serrated edge, so it's easy to get it lined up. Just line up the serrations. Okay, and then all we're going to do is pop the glue on our 4 tabs. Whoops, that's far too much really. 1, 2, 3 and 4. While I'm letting that just dry off, I'm just going to cut another piece of this for my tag. So I do hope you've got a cup of coffee or a cup of tea with you to keep you going through this extended version. Okay, so exactly the same as we did before. Fold it up I've given it a little bit of a chance to start going tacky. So there's 1, 2. Now it's just got a little bit more weight on it now because we've got the layers of paper. Like so. Do these 2 next. Obviously, if you're putting your hole in and you've got paper that goes a particular way, make sure that you haven't put it at the bottom, for example. So depending on what paper you've used, just be aware of that really. Okay, so just holding those. So now I've got my top with my cut. I've got my edges nicely cut there, and then all being well, it will fit on, so quite a bit more snugly. Okay, so that was 1 millimeter difference. You can see the pattern paper through there. All being well, our In the Garden fits in there, and there is our design. Now this because of the shape of the hand cream, what I would probably do is prop this up slightly with some either some paper shreds so it sits up like that, or you could use a little bit of what do you call that stuff? Oh, I can't think of the word. Bubble wrap. That's the word. Or tissue paper, just to bring that up like that. Just wondering what I've got that I could use temporarily. Oh, I think I have some bubble wrap just here. It's a little bit big. In fact, it's very big. I don't really want to cut it up because it's a bag, but let me just show you what you could do. So you wouldn't want it all the way down, but you could add it at the top. Okay, I know this is going to be a bit high now, but there we go. So there we've got our In the Garden shea butter hand cream in a nice little box, and I've got a little tag here that I could put together. Just pop this on maybe with a dimensional. So just really showing you how you can take what is a fairly straightforward little gift, rather than just wrapping it in Christmas wrapping paper, making a cute little box for it. And I could punch a hole in this and add it as a tag, and also add some ribbon around it, which has disappeared. I have some ribbon here. I've got this one here, which is the matching pale papaya, which is really pretty. Sorry, that's my house phone going. So pretty. So you could add this, add some ribbon around here. Obviously you don't want to cover up your design. Now I know this is slightly full now because I've got a whole thing of bubble wrap in there. Okay, so you could do that. Let's make that a little bit smaller. Want it too outsized for its purpose, like that. Just trim these edges off, like that, and there we go. That little bit tidier. after my ribbon scissors. Oh, that didn't work. There we go. And then with my little tag, I could punch a hole, add a little bit of linen thread and attach that with a little message on the back. You could also sort of do it as a sliding top if you wanted to, with a little brad. That would also work. So there we go. I think I've taken enough of your time as it is. Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate your comments. Yes, you do need to go back to basics sometimes, especially if you don't do boxes on a regular basis. So hopefully that's given you some hints and tips. My biggest ones would be use wet glue sparingly. Is the answer to that, so that you don't get glue everywhere. Cut the sides of your box so that they're flat and only the tabs at an angle, and give your glue 10 seconds or so to start going tacky before you put the sides of your box together. Okay, it's definitely time for me to grab a coffee because I've got an online meeting in 7 minutes, so that was good timing. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will be back tomorrow, Thursday at 10 p.m. No, Thursday at 7 p.m. Dear. That coffee can't come too soon, can it? I'll be here tomorrow at 7 for some more gift wrapping. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening, depending on what time you're watching this. And if you have any queries or questions, don't hesitate to shout. And if you're here with us in the UK live, do remember that today, Wednesday the 8th of December, we have free shipping on all orders over £35. So any order that you place where the products are £35 or more, you'll get free shipping straight to your home or your business address, as long as you place that order before 10:30 this evening. So one day only free shipping. Take advantage, save yourself £4.95, and if you needed to stock up on anything, you can also check out the clearance rack and our last chance list with the retiring items, stamp sets in there from £7.50. Grab yourself a bargain. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Thanks, Jill. Brenda, Jeanette I know has gone, and Kerry, if Kerry's still here, and anybody else who's still watching. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.